my name is Shannon and this is the Vocal Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Last week I spoke to you guys about fear and what it means to have fear and to combat it and what it means to be courageous. So if you guys want to check that out, please do. That was my last podcast. But today I'm here with my best friend, Marley. She is here. Say hi, Marley.
Hi, Marley.
So, and today we're going to talk to you guys a bit about feminism. So I hope you enjoy. So Marley.
Yes, hello.
Introduce yourself to the people.
Cool. I'm Marley. I grew up in Thornton Heath in South London. For those of you who say sorry, we're not friends, so you can stop listening now. I'm joking. But yeah, I am a writer. I do copywriting and advertising for monies, but I really want to be an author and write fiction and books. And I always hate how people's introductions is to do with their job. So things about me, I really like the colour green. I like neo soul music and funky house, and that's how Shan and I became friends, probably. And my favourite cake is a sticky toffee pudding at the moment. So I also run a blog where I write some fiction, and you can follow me at MarleyMWrites on Instagram, where I post pictures for when I blog, so that's fun.
Cool. I will link that in the bio below so you guys can check her out. Please do follow her. Her poems are really cool. So Marley, what does... today's about feminism.
Yes.
You're talking about a feminist movement, the fourth wave feminist movement, by the way.
Yeah.
So what is feminism to you, and what do you think a true feminist looks like?
Good question. I think feminism at its heart, I think it used to mean for a lot of people about like giving women equal rights, and that was what they thought was the heart of it. But for me, I think that's very literal. I think in terms of the ethos it stands for, I think it's about gender equality and gender equity and gender acceptance and choice. And I think that is the truth of it, and making sure that people are treated equally irrespective of their gender, which is why I also think feminism is a really big deal for men as well and should be talked about. Not that it should become the whole movement, but it benefits men as well. It shouldn't just be seen as beneficiary for women. In terms of a true feminist, I think that's hard because I feel like that can get a bit political. But I think a true feminist is someone who fights for everybody to have the choice, as long as that choice isn't harming other people, which I can understand can get a bit icky for some topics, but I think fighting for choice. So you and I might have very different views on what we should be allowed to do, but as long as I fight for your choice and you fight for mine, it doesn't matter what our opinions are on the nuances of feminism. It's that we may disagree, but I fight for your right to disagree, and I fight for your right to wear what you want to wear on the street, and I fight for your right to get equal pay, whether that's as a prostitute or as a CEO. So
you're saying it's just a fight for the freedom of choice. That's all it is, as a woman.
Yes.
Right? And a man as well. Right?
Definitely. I think a lot of men should start being feminists. I feel like when, we're only in our 20s, so I can only talk about when we were younger, but like a lot of men saw feminism, because it said feminism, literally thought it was just about giving women more power or something.
Hating men.
Yeah.
Or, being against that, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of girls our age, or even men as well. No, that's actually not true. I think girls our age, when you say you're a feminist...
Women our age.
Women, girls. I like girls.
Do you like girls?
I like girls.
You know what it was? I literally had to pull someone up at work recently for that. Not me, but someone, where they call us girls in a professional setting. But they don't call the men boys. It's like they're almost calling you something quite childish. There's just something very unsettling about a 40-year-old white man calling you girls in an office. It's a bit weird.
I guess it's different, but I feel like that was the whole movement. Like, Riot Girl? And they use the word girl because girls are more free than women. Women have to be a certain way, and women are... But it depends. Like, as you're saying, feminism can look different on different people.
That's so true.
But yeah, so...
You're saying a lot of women our age. Sorry, girls our age.
Yeah, a lot of women, girls our age... When they say they're a feminist, they're looked down upon. People don't really want you to, or they'd be like, oh, you're a feminist. Okay, you're going to tell me things now. You're going to tell me not to do this. But it's like, I don't think we should be that way. I think we all need to kind of unite and stay strong, because a
Yeah.
feminist isn't what people think it is. And I think we should be coming together and being like, no, you know, this is not what feminism is, and have more conversations like what we're doing now. I think it's really important.
Definitely.
So I'm glad you're here today to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
So do you class yourself as a feminist?
Yeah, I think I do. No, I don't think I do. I do.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think with things like this, I feel like any movement, it always feels weird when you have to, the right thing to do gets a label. So by wanting people to have a choice, I'm some kind of different person. I'm a feminist. Anyone who doesn't class as that is just someone normal. It's like, surely we should be labeling the people who don't want that. Like, you have normal people, and then the people who don't want women to have equal rights, and the people who don't want, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, 1,000%. Do you?
I think, yeah, I do. I definitely do. I think, as you were saying before, that it's about choice, you know, and as long as you're fighting for that, for women to have the choice to do things, and you're against misogyny, which everybody should be, because, you know, why would you be for that? Yeah, I would definitely class myself as a feminist, you know, and it's definitely hard. It's definitely hard for us in our age to say you're a feminist, because there are people out there that think, that don't know what it is, but because they see really radicalized feminism, and that's what makes the news, and that's what people love to talk about, they put you as that, and they say this is what you are, you know. And I think people that are brave enough to say that they're a feminist are also can be very militant and very unempathetic sometimes when they talk to people. And I think when you're constantly getting that image about that, of course people are going to say, oh, feminism, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but definitely.
Yeah, it's not the same issue, but it's kind of how I think people see veganism as well. They're like, oh, I'm a vegan. Oh, you're going to stuff all that tofu down my throat. Like, no, just have a certain value system, and here to educate if you're open to that.
You don't have to either. I'm just eating my tofu. Like,
exactly.
Don't at me.
It's
like...
fine. But I think that was a real tipping point when Beyonce started to call herself a feminist very, very openly. And I remember, it's actually so messed up thinking about it. In uni, she became a topic of debate. Like, should she be allowed to call herself a feminist after profiting off of, like, performing a certain gender role for so long and then suddenly switching? But my point of view is, like, one, she was just doing her own thing. Just because she wore small clothes doesn't mean she was doing it for a man. Secondly, isn't that the whole point of feminism? That people eventually get educated and then move. I never understood that like, once people do educate themselves and do, actually, I'm open to that. It's like, well, you weren't in 2008 when you did that tweet. It's like, yeah, because I learned and I listened to you and what you did worked.
Yeah, I think this cancel culture where people are finding out, like, this doesn't have to do with feminism, but like you're saying, like, you know, remember when Kevin Hart made that tweet and stuff, but it's like from all the way back then. But if you're not, like you say, if you're not thinking it now, why are you still getting punished?
Yeah,
for your previous mistake. I totally agree with that. Definitely true. Right. Feminism is for everybody. And everyone can change, and anyone can open up, and yeah. So do you think that feminism is still needed, and why?
Yes, I really do. I think that people can sometimes confuse feminism for what it was fighting for and not what it means. So people will think things like, oh, like, you can get a job now, so why do you still need to be a feminist? Like, the thing that feminism might be fighting for, the literal thing, is always going to be evolving and changing with the times as our focus becomes different. In terms of, like, 1 minute we might be fighting for, like, the vote was a really big thing for the first wave, like you were saying earlier. For now, it's a lot about, like, equal pay and making sure we don't get sexually harassed and things like that. People can sometimes describe you like, oh, well, you got the vote, so what are you still fighting for? Like, no, there's still injustices in here. Just because we're bringing up more and making you realise more doesn't mean that feminism is no longer important, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think it's definitely still needed today, and I think it's going to continue to evolve, and people should be open to that, because as we learn more, we're gonna find out more nuances that we need to fix and change, and that is a beautiful thing. It's exhausting and emotionally draining, but it's needed. So, but what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You know, while misogyny exists, so does feminism. I mean, wasn't there that statistic the other day, 97% of women in the UK have been reported of being sexually harassed. So that is something that happens. I feel like, and they said a lot of women also have given up hope that this is ever going to change. Like, it's normal to walk into a club and expect a guy to grab you or touch your ass, or, you know, me personally, I've had experiences where someone's grabbed my face, they've grabbed my ass, they've touched me, and I've not given any hint that I want this. In fact, I'm hiding. I'm against a wall because I'm afraid that somebody's going to touch me, and it shouldn't be like that. And until that stops, I definitely 100% think that feminists is needed. And don't get me started on domestic violence. Don't get me started on the fact that there's still the gender pay gap, which is debatable, sure, but why is it debatable? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, definitely. And I think a really big part, just off of what you were saying, is that feminism is going to always be needed as long as people are still putting the answers on women. So like you were saying, that there's this thing happening, so you put yourself against a wall and you make sure you don't wear anything that's not too short, and you make sure you don't leave your house past 9 o'clock. As long as that's still existing and we're still expecting women to accommodate whatever crap they're being given, feminism is going to be needed. Because it's not our job to accommodate the bullshit, basically.
Yeah, because why are we telling women not to wear short skirts, but we're not telling men don't harass these women?
Exactly.
There's no etiquette class for men, but there needs to be. I think decency is something that's really lost. I sound really old-fashioned, like an old, be decent, but it's true. People are just rude. Like, they think that just because they can say it, they have the right to say it, to be rude, misogynistic, racist, sexist, all of this stuff. They think they can. You can, of course you can, but you don't need to. You don't need to make a point by being rude and overzealous and arrogant. Like, and I think that's really sad that this is where we're at, you know.
It's entitlement. Like, we're so entitled right now. We all feel like our opinion is important, and it is. That's a good thing that like voices are being democratized. But at the same time, it's like, you don't need to have an opinion on everything. You don't. It's not your place. It's your place to accept. Sometimes you need to have an opinion, and sometimes you just need to accept what's going on. This is one of the times where you need to accept women are going to walk around in a short skirt, and you have no business harassing them for it or judging them for it. That's not, but I think, and the Bible. No. You need to just hold your opinion to yourself there. So, yeah.
And I think there's no point of having entitlement without empathy at the same time.
That's so true.
Because I think if you're constantly just like, oh, this is my opinion, this is my opinion, this is my opinion, that's fine. But don't walk into a situation, you know, I'm thinking, this is my opinion, this is how I think feminism is and what it is, without being open and ready to listen. Even if you still disagree with them, just sit there and understand and, you know, take the time. I think that's really important too.
Definitely. People confuse opinion with fact. I think we walk in thinking that because something's our truth, it's everyone's truth. And sometimes it should be. Like, women are equal, should be a universal truth.
Right.
But sometimes, like, you're just going to disagree, and that's okay.
And but even then, even if you don't, for some strange reason, you don't think that women and men...
That girl rejected you one time in year 4. Now you can't get over it, so fun all women.
Oh dear. But anyways, like, even if you don't think that men and females should be equal, you know, I would still sit there and listen to you and take the time for you to talk to me, even if I completely disagree with what you're saying. Have that same courtesy. That's it. That's all we're saying. And you know,
that's true.
Otherwise you're just narrow-minded.
Definitely.
You know?
And it's also the power systems. They're like, for example, like, I would have no problem with a man thinking that women are inferior. The problem is the power systems that enforce that opinion on me. So if we lived in a completely egalitarian society and some guy thought, actually, I think women are like, don't deserve it. Be like, okay, Bob, why do you think that? X, Y, and Z. And that would be it there. You'd still go off in your mini skirt and it would be fine. But it's the problem that these opinions now have an impact on people's lives, and that's what needs to stop.
So that kind of leads me on to ask you, like, about your personal experience. So, like, what was it like for you to grow up female, and, like, have you faced any problems that you think that feminism could have probably, if it was on a next stage or doing better, that could have helped you with?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a weird one. As I said, we're still quite young in terms of in our 20s. And I think your 20s are an interesting time because you start to... you have enough years behind you to reflect. Like, at 12, you're not really reflecting, really. But so much that I saw that happened when I was younger that I didn't really realise how bad it was. So being told to, I keep talking about skirts, I don't know why this is so passionate. I'm so passionate about this today, but like how it was a normal thing to accept that you should have a longer skirt so you don't disrupt the boys' education, but it's never a conversation about why the boys' harassment is disrupting mine. And I went to a boys' sixth form for sixth form, obviously they had a mixed sixth form, but looking back on some of the stuff that happened there, it's so scarily wrong, and it was such a sexist school. Like, one example, when we first got there, they had a whole assembly for everyone. They asked all the boys to leave. It was 140 boys in that school and maybe 30 girls. And they told us, you're here to further the boys' education. And I was like, I don't know who you are, but I didn't do 13 GCSEs to help get Timmy to Oxford.
They said that to you?
Yeah.
Let me have an Oprah moment. What?
The hands are up. Literally, they said that to us. This was day one of this school. And then you're like, okay, that sets the tone. And then
why would they say that? Because
that's what they thought. They were saying that's why they started to introduce girls into the school. It had nothing to do with, we have a really great education system here, and we think that we can benefit people that aren't just boys. It was, by being here, you're going to motivate the boys to do better. So
wow, that's insane.
Exactly. So that was kind of day one of the school, and every girl at that school got sexually harassed at one point in varying degrees. You had the most traumatic and the most violent end of it that we heard about. That was really bad. I won't go into that. And then you had other ends of like guys just sitting up on them or something like that. I had a teacher, a male member of staff, tell me that I needed to learn how to eat like a girl during class.
What?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
What did that even mean? Did you ask him about that?
No, I didn't. I was too angry. I just left it. We had the female teachers had to get us together one time and talk about sexism, and they were talking about when one of them first joined the school, it was normal for the headmaster to slap her on the arse, and she did a good job. This is 2015. Like, I'll just point out, like, I am not 50-some years old. This isn't the, like, 80s and 90s. This was 5 years ago. This was 6 years ago. This really wasn't that long ago. What else happened? That school was crazy. The first week of school, a bunch of the boys made a list of the girls that were the most bangable and invited them to a house party. And we didn't realise that was what that list was about till we got there. Like, nothing dodgy happened, or at least not to me, because I think me and my friend stayed for 20 minutes, then clocked and just left. But yeah, so much has happened. Like, even, I feel like I'm just expelling now. But
go for it.
Yeah, like even our school, so we went to secondary school together.
Yeah, me and Marley have known each other since we were 11 years
exactly.
old. Okay,
pre-glow up times.
Wait, let me get those pictures out of the archives.
I was gonna say,
JK, that's not happening.
People don't need to see. Oh my god. But I was talking about this with my cousin. I was saying I only realise now that what happened was sexual harassment. But I remember sitting on a coach on a school trip, and the boys behind us were slipping their hands through the coach seat to pull our knickers up and look at our bums. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, annoying boy, you're being annoying," and I knew it was annoying, and that. It was only in hindsight I was like, you fucking, like, sexual harasser. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, you know what? I told someone I know that story, and you know what they said to me the first thing? They were like, yeah, but they were just kids. And boys will be boys, which is ridiculous, because it's like, you're saying boys will be boys, and you shouldn't, you know, they're just kids, you shouldn't be telling them what to do. But it's like, yeah, but you're a girl, and you went through that.
Was that... Oh, sorry, I thought you meant that a girl said this.
No.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, oh my gosh, the internalised misogyny. Oh no.
No. But I was like saying, you know, you're, as a girl, going through that's a lot to you. That's a bit traumatising. That's a bit, and then also that's setting you up to be like, okay, so when a boy touches me on the ass, I should just laugh it off because it's not that deep, you know. It's setting you up to then be further sexually harassed like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, we should be teaching boys how not to do these things. Do you know what I'm saying? Exactly. We should be teaching them, like, no, this, again, decency. Just be a decent human being.
Exactly. And I feel like so much happened at school. I could go on about
I remember when they would, like, touch a girl that had, like, bigger boobs, remember?
They
would touch her.
And try and undo her bra.
Try and undo her bra. Yeah. They would pull the bra straps and stuff like that. And it was just normal to have, like, language like, oh, look at her ass, like, as you're walking, like...
And we're 15. This is the other thing. We're, like, not... not that it justifies it, but I mean, we're not even sexually mature. Like, we're not like 18, 19, like, we're like 13, 14, where we don't even, truth be told, we really don't even know what we're talking about in terms of like, we really should not really be knowing the ins and outs of sex at that age. So yeah, it's really worrying. But I also think, I was going to say, I don't know if you've had similar experience, but there's been a lot of sexism in the home, and I feel like that's something that I've woken up to as well. Just, I grew up with a brother, love my brother dearly. The difference in, at the dinner table, it's completely normal for my brother to be talking about the girls he was seeing or da-la-da-la-da. Bear in mind, he's younger than me as well. But God forbid I bring up a boy I like. And it was like, it's not even that they would be bad. The conversation would be different. We were like, with my brother, be like, oh, like, what's she like? Da-la-da, you really seen girls? If it came to me, what's his name? What's he doing? Da-la-da-la-da. And it was like, one, I'm 12. He's doing his lessons.
Right.
Two, it's like, you're now, one, teaching me that men are something to be feared, and you're putting that on me, rather than turning to my brother, like, are you treating that girl right? Are you whatever, da-da-da-da? Even that conversation. And two, like, making me feel like my sexuality is something to be protected and hidden rather than explored. And I think that is another thing that parents can do as well, that I think a lot of women, we're hypersexualized, so we feel sometimes weird about maybe expressing our sexuality, but also like taught to be basically like virgin, pure, whatever on earth that means, but you know what I mean. Like, and I think a lot of that can start at home as well.
I agree with you 100%. I think, you know, it's we protect girls, but we don't protect boys the same. We don't treat them the same. And I'm not saying that boys need to be protected. I think, you know, we think sexuality is something, we've demonized it, made it evil, and been like, okay, if you do this, but all you have to do is give your child the knowledge of what it is and have that conversation and be open, because that's all you need. That's all a woman needs. You don't need to be shamed or felt like you're a victim, because when you start walking around feeling like you're a victim, it can really affect you. It can really affect you, and it's not easy. I wouldn't say it was easy.
Definitely. I remember one distinct time I was sitting at the table with my brother and both of my parents, and I think I was going out that evening, obviously pre-COVID times. So I was talking about what I was going to wear, and I got this really cute skirt, and my mum was saying, oh, your brother thought you looked really nice in that outfit you wore the other day, and he was like, yeah, but that skirt was too short. And then him and my dad were then joking about like, yeah, come on, Marley, like, you can't wear something like that, da-la-da-la-da. And not necessarily, you know, you don't look great, or you couldn't pull it off again, whatever that means. Just in terms of like, that's a bit short, isn't it? And I think I just ended up saying like, can you stop? I remember like bursting out crying at the table, and they were like, what happened? What did we do? And my mum said, everything you're saying is basically telling her that if anything did happen, it would be her fault. And that's what you're saying as her brother and her father right now. And I feel like that was a moment for them, they really deeped it. But I remember genuinely like crying at this table, not out of sadness, but just anger of like, why is this even a conversation we're having right now? You never talk about my brother's shorts being too short, or his top being too tight, or him being out too late. Why does this have to be about me?
I understand. Yeah, I really feel you on that. Like, you know, that's not easy. I mean, having to grow up, you know, feeling like you're not equal to boys that can do what they want to do. It, you know, it's not nice, definitely. You know, so yeah, I feel you. So the slut walk is something that was organised with or by Amber Rose, I'm not sure, but it was a march that was part of a movement to protest against like attitudes towards, you know, female victims of sexual assault, because a lot of the time they were like, you know, oh, when they get asked about whether they had been sexually assaulted, the police at the time were asking questions like, oh, you know, what are you wearing? What have you been drinking? Did you go back to his house? That kind of stuff, as if any of that has anything to do with them being raped. So it was the idea that women can wear whatever the hell they want to wear. They can wear, you know, a bra and a short skirt, whatever, and they should not be harassed. It's not about what the women are wearing, but it's about what the men are doing. So what do you think about this and the slut walk and that movement?
Yeah, I think it's amazing, personally. And I think that a lot of the critique that people have for it, or can sometimes have for it, is like, oh, but walking out like scantily clad, or however you want to call it.
What did you just say?
Scantily clad. It means That's my literature nerd coming out. It basically means not wearing a lot of
Is that a real
clothes.
word?
Yeah, but it's like Old English.
Oh, wow.
It's like when women would show their ankles and their wrists.
I was going with my dictionary. That's beautiful.
Yes. Anyway, when women would go out looking stripsy, as my mum would say, that as a form of protest, it's like, yeah, but the men are liking that. Like, you're basically giving them what they want. And I'm like, okay, firstly, I think there's something really beautiful and liberating in this for women. Like, a group of women going out wearing what they want, standing together, is something for women as well. Not everything about feminism is about, like, educating men or serving men's ignorance, if that makes sense. So if that woman does that to make herself feel free, and for a moment she's walking down a street feeling really empowered in a boob tube, then let that happen. Also, like, it's not a woman's fault that a man over sexualizes her body. So yeah, I think it's something amazing. I think that it is one prong in like a whole, or one part of a whole number of actions to awaken people and fight for change. I don't think that feminism could just happen with the slut walk. I don't think that's the only way to like go for it. But I also don't think it could happen without it. I think there's something really beautiful about it. We should see it holistically. We shouldn't see it as like, are you fighting for equal pay or fighting for free the nipple? Like, why not both? Why, you know what I mean? It's both just as important in my view.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think?
So do you think that we should be freeing the nipple? We should be, you know, looking at women's bodies like they're not just sexual objects, this is just a body kind of thing. Do you think that's important?
Definitely. I think it's really important to not just look at women's bodies as sexual objects. I think that free the nipple will work for some women and not work for others. And that's beautiful in that. That's how it should be. Some women will want to do that, some women won't. And that's it. I don't think that women who want to cover up should be seen as like feminist traitors. And I don't think that women who don't want to cover up should be seen as people who are diluting the message and trivializing what it is. So
there's always an argument that kind of comes up that I don't know about, but it's like, you know, when, you know, you're dressing up in like lingerie, which is something that is supposed to be for sex, right? And you're walking around with that, is that not sexualizing your own body?
yes.
And is that not what you're trying to say you're not trying to do? That's what I've always had a question about.
I think I am by no means the authority on this,
No,
but just
but
my or on anything I've said, everything I'm saying,
It's just
it's
all
just
opinion. All opinion. Beautiful.
But
beautiful opinion.
for me, it's about, yes, it's sexual, and yes, that is giving off like sexual imagery and sexual messages and sexual body language. I think the difference is that when you see a woman do that in part of the slut walk, she's doing it for her. And so often when we see a woman dressed in lingerie, it's like, oh, what man are you trying to impress? You're dressing up for your man. You're trying to get sexy for your man. I think like even our view of sexuality of always being for a partner or always being for someone else, it's for ourselves as well. Our sexual energy is for ourselves. So I think when I see a woman dressed in lingerie, and like I do pole fitness, for example, so you see a lot of women who are dressing in really short things or like lingerie while they do it, it's for themselves. They are doing something that expresses their sexual energy. The same way as if you're really happy, you might wear yellow or something like that. If you're feeling like you want to dress up and feel classy, you might wear a gorgeous ball gown. No one looks at you and think, are you getting classy for someone else? Is that what's happening? Are you trying to make someone else happy with the yellow you're wearing?
Right.
It's for you.
So you're saying that basically you can express your sexual energy, especially the fact that you are a sexual being,
yes,
without initiating or wanting sex.
1,000%.
And that is what the slut walk is about.
Yes.
And I agree with you on that. It's 100% to do with that. And yeah, man, I think the slut walk is a beautiful thing. I think it's what needs to be said. I think it's absolutely insane that rape victims are being asked what they were wearing.
Yes.
And I think it's absolutely disgusting that you know, that women are being asked, okay, maybe, sure, some people do make stuff up, but that's not the questions you're asking, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, you know? So, yeah.
And it also takes out that argument that, like, you can wear whatever you want. Like you say, it doesn't justify any attack that happens to you. How on earth somebody can sit there and say, because you wore something that showed thigh, you deserve to be assaulted. You deserve, your consent is taken away, your power is taken away. Like, that is not how it works. Our bodies aren't here. Female bodies aren't here to serve men. Also, with the slut walk, I would say it's not that different from carnival. When you think about carnival and Caribbean carnival, and it's an expression of sexual energy, unbridled sexual energy and consent, and like not having not just that. Okay, sorry, Shannon's like squinting. I don't think carnival is just that. It's not just that. It's not the same as the slut walk. But I'm talking about you're in the middle of a street in a bra and a thong and bedazzles, shaking yourself. Like, it's for yourself. That's what I mean.
And no one's better now, is
one's...
But do you know why people are okay with carnival? Is because I think carnival is another issue. There's a whole other issue.
Yeah, maybe.
Let me just touch it. I'll just touch it because we all know what happens at carnival. We all know that
true.
the reason why no one has trouble with carnival is because they grab women whenever they want. They get their wines, and then women are shaking their asses for the men, and that's why they're okay with it.
True.
The slut walk is for women. That's why people are not okay with carnival. I'm not okay with the slut walk, but okay with carnival.
You almost made me happy that it was cancelled this year. It's true. But as a woman going, I love it. When I'm with my girls and I'm wearing my little shiny bra, my little shorts, I feel great. But it is true. You know you're getting harassed that day.
Yeah.
You go in knowing someone's going to touch my ass, someone's going to piss me off, someone's trying to catch a case today. So.
Okay. 100% agree. Power, sis. Yeah. Power. Yeah. So that brings me on to my next point. What do you think about prostitution? Do you think it should be legalised? What's your opinion on that?
I would have to say that I have a very ill-informed opinion. I'm not very educated on the subject. So, and I think this is a very important point as well. Like in our society, sometimes it feels like you have to have an opinion on everything. It's not okay to say, actually, I don't know enough yet. So this is one of the times I will say I don't know enough yet. But I can say that I think that people should be able to do what they want with their bodies. And if they choose to do that, that should be fine. But I also understand that prostitution, there's a lot of abuse that happens as a result. There's a lot of inequity. There's a lot of systematic issues that lead to that. In many senses, like prostitution is a symptom of a bigger problem. But in terms of whether it should be legalized, even that I was saying, like the concept of a pimp, personally, I feel like making it legal would be handing people from one pimp to another, in terms of now you're in the tax system and now you've got to give me a cut. It's the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that would be my thing, but I don't know. I feel like you know more on the matter than I do.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel like sometimes I'm like, if there wasn't poverty, if there was, if everybody had equal or some kind of credit given to them, would these women be prostitutes? Would they do what they had to do in these countries? And I don't think a lot of them would. I think a lot of the reason people are prostitutes is because this is their only escape. And I get legalizing it I think it needs to happen, because I think that it will, at least we can start monitoring them. At least we can start watching what they do. But I don't think we should legalize it without asking ourselves, where does prostitution come from? Like, why are these women so poor in the first place that they think they have to, not that they want to, but they have to sell their body?
Yeah.
So I feel like, yes, but we also have to, look at the economics of it. Like, what's going on with these, why is this happening? Yeah. So I think that's it. And if it's a drug problem, how do we get them out of drugs? How do we do rehabilitation for women that are prostitutes? And I think they just overlook them because women and sex is such a taboo, and because we can't talk about sex, prostitutes aren't even thought about. They get killed and murdered, and it doesn't really properly get investigated, or nobody's talking about it. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Where is the on social media we put up pictures of these people that go missing and stuff, but no one's talking about prostitution. No one's saying, this prostitute's gone missing, help her. Do you know what I'm saying?
I guess there's also very ostracized people. That's not me justifying at all. I just mean in terms of like, they're pushed to the furthest corners of society, and I guess maybe for some people that's what legalization would help solve. That, like, at least we know who these people are. They're seen. They're not people that have like come from another country, have no one here, no ties, no place to turn to, who, like, even if there was a picture, who would be posting it, because they don't know anybody. So I feel like that solves it. But yeah, it's still incredibly,
no one's looking after them.
Yeah.
Again, prostitutes are human beings.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, they're not commodities like men, or I don't know, men use prostitutes, don't they? Are used, commodities that the system is making them to be. They're human beings.
It's also like kind of going back to what we were saying about the clothes and that whole like you were asking for it culture. I feel like with prostitution that comes in as well. If anything happens to you, you were asking for it because you were selling your body for sex. You're asking to be murdered. You're asking for this to happen.
Yeah, you knew the risks when you got into it, so you deserve it. So why should we help you?
Exactly.
Why should we look for you? Why should we put money into you? So yeah, 100%. So what about feminism and black women? Do you think that feminism right now is for black women? Because we saw the media coverage of Sarah Everard, right? She got murdered and, you know, there was a huge feminist protest. All the feminists came together. But then that kind of made me think that black women get murdered so much more often with domestic violence and stuff like that. And by police and stuff like that. But it doesn't really get covered as much.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I think it is getting better than it has before, but that is by no means good enough in terms of where feminism is at. I think like with any institution or any belief system, this is a weird segue into religion, but I promise it will make sense. I feel like the ideals that something holds are great and they're foundational, and I hate using the word pure, but let's just say pure for the sake of argument. The second people start to enact those ideals, all of the issues that they have start to influence it. So like believing in God, faith is a beautiful thing. Religion, very corrupt. Feminism argues for treating women equally. Damn right. But actual feminists, still humans with biases and like discrimination and all of those things. So I think like feminism as an ideal definitely fights for the right thing. The people that are feminists are not as inclusive as they could be and not fighting for the right things because they're not checking themselves the same way like you can be, because a lot of people talk about white feminism. And that white feminism is fighting for the liberation of white women, but it doesn't recognise the intersectionality of race like we're talking about now, or ableism, or your sexuality, or your class. Like, are we fighting for poor women the same way we're fighting for middle-class white women who want to also be CEO? Are we fighting for them the same way as somebody who is a cleaner? Like, do you know what I mean? So I don't think it does enough at all, and I think sometimes that can be the issue with labels like feminism, if we were to look at it on the bad side of it, because it sections off one thing in terms of like, really someone who's a feminist should also be like within the Black Power movement. If you're really a feminist, you should also completely be for the Black Power movement. And if you're really a feminist, then you should also be right up there on the picket line for LGBTQ+. Like you should, if to call yourself a feminist, you should be fighting for every faction of society. Exactly.
Yeah.
But those of you who aren't, I guess it goes back to your question about being a true feminist. I would argue you're not. But then that is something that I think is a journey. That is something that people need to learn and educate themselves on. Like, be aware that you have bias. I'm aware I have bias on certain things. I'm aware I have ignorance, so I take opportunities to learn. I am not a perfect feminist right now. I'm incredibly flawed. I still have all of those things. But I'd like to think I make an active effort in eroding some of that. So if more people had that mentality of being open when they're challenged, then I think it would be better, but it definitely isn't serving black women right now as well as it could be. And it's hard because I think we're some of the loudest voices in it. We're some of the loudest voices. So
I think it's crazy because even when feminism, you know, if you look at the history of feminism, when they gave women the vote, they gave also, was it black men the vote? And they gave black men the vote because they were afraid that women were going to outvote the men because they still didn't want the women to come. And then black women were last. They were the last people to get the vote. So when you look at it in that way, it's kind of how everything works. You know, first it's white men get it, then the white women get it, then it's the black men, then it's the black women last. So I feel like when I do like look at search up feminism, I notice that they do recognise that, they do understand that. But I feel like what they do in feminism with black women is that they other them. They'd be like, oh yeah, but we don't really deal with that right now. You know, it's not really my cat, you know, my case. And it's like, so what? Will you want us to make our own thing? No, because we're all feminists together. Do you know what I mean? Then it's like, oh, so are you going to represent me? Well, you know what I mean? It's like a circle. So it's like, I don't know how, I think the best way to do it is just to stop seeing us as other, to start seeing us as we are all women. And okay, we have a different kind of struggle, but I'm sure that there are other women that are not black, that are not just BME, that also have similar things that we struggle with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
But it's othering us and saying our issues are completely different. They're not that different. They are, but they're not. No. And it's not that hard to include us all. You don't even have to use the word black. You just say, oh, well, this girl got murdered. Cool, let's put her in the news. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's a very sectionalized view of looking at things. And I think when you... the best thing to do is put more black women as leaders of the quote-unquote white feminist movements. Put them all on the same kind of board. Because when you either see, like, either white women on the table or you see black women on the table. You don't see them mixed together and talking about the issue as one. Maybe it is changing, like you're saying, it is getting better. They are noticing it, they are taking it up, but it's still definitely not there. I wouldn't say... I still feel like if I want to look up a black issue for black women, I would have to go somewhere else. I couldn't look on a feminist.
Definitely. They're not... they're 1,000% not intersectional enough. And I think that's why you got the emergence of womanism, which I believe, do not quote me on this, I'm very ill-educated on this as well, but from what I understand, it emerged in the 60s during the civil rights movement as a result of this, as a result of you had black women who felt like they were obviously getting the like blunt end of racism and it being awful, but it was also, but then the race movement, the civil rights movement often focused a lot on the black man and their plight and their struggles and not understanding the nuances of being a black woman. Then you also had the feminist movement happening at the same time, or very similar times if we're talking like decade-wise. But it felt like, yes, you're addressing the fact that I'm a woman, but you're not addressing the nuances of me being a black woman. And I feel like this came up during the whole Meg Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez drama when he like shot her and all of that. And I will find the name and give it to you to put in the bio for this. But the professor and historian who coined the term misogynoir, I don't know if you've heard of it, which basically it talks about the dual racism and sexism that black women experience and how those two are intertwined. It's not here's one racist thing that happened to me and here's one sexist thing that's happened to me. It's here's this very specific thing that happens to me because I'm black and a woman. And that's called misogynoir. So I feel like you get all of these factions, like you were saying, it gets very sectioned off. And I think that's important. I think it's important that we recognise that we all have nuanced struggles. But at the same time, like you said, I think it's important that everybody recognises that and we come together united. Because that's going to have the most impact. There's more that... What's the word? There's more... We have more in common than we have that divides us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, 100%. And I mean, one book that I read which was really cool was like Angela Davis. Because she's
amazing.
She was around during the Civil Rights Movement. She was a Black Panther. She was very cool. She's still alive. She's pretty cool. But she was a black feminist. And she wrote a book called Women, Race and Class, right? And that book, it was crazy because what they tried to do, they tried to lump civil rights movement and feminism together. That's what the government tried to do. And I think as a response, feminists and black people would be like, no, we're different. And I think that might have been somewhere where it sprung in to action, because it kind of made them be like, no, you will not lump it, which is too right. You cannot just put these two issues together. But I think from there, that's when this kind of attitude towards, well, you're not really our problem, you need to go do your own thing, kind of came from in the first place, which is really interesting. But
definitely,
we got to stop that, man.
Yeah, for sure. I will say one thing that's really given me the hope with the whole Kill the Bill protests that have been happening recently. I don't understand how we started this week with Meghan Markle. There's been a murder that's been awful and ended it with the police trying to ruin our human rights. Like, how on earth has all of that gone past in 10 days? And also the global pandemic that's still happening.
And the Asian hate that's gone up.
That's happened.
It's so sad.
It's awful. Yeah. But the one thing that Kill the Bill gave me hope for is that there's been an alliance between over 70 different protest movements, between BLM, between Extinction Rebellion, between feminist movements. And I feel like what was so beautiful about that, like, that protest was a combination of everybody. And everybody was fighting together. And if I was the government, I would be shook right now. Because before we were all trying to fight in our own little corner and make little change happen. You had 70 different organisations fighting for very different things, all to come together and saw what they had in common. And if something like that continues,
You should just see what Marley did with her head just then. That was comical. But...
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they felt it. I feel like you could feel it through the phone. But yeah, I think when you see people come together like that, and that's it, I recognise that you are fighting for something different, but I recognise that it's just as important as what I'm fighting for. And I feel like that's where we need to get to. We're different, but all just as valid.
Okay, so that leads me on to talking about gender roles. So do you think women and men should have gender roles? And do you think we are just fundamentally just different?
Okay, this is a complex one. Very complex.
Gender.
Gender roles, I disagree with wholeheartedly. I think the idea of a group of people deciding what can work for an individual will just never be good. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. Also, I feel like a lot of our gender roles are really arbitrary. Like, for example, women should cook and be in a kitchen. But despite that, most of the top high-paid chefs are men. So just none of it makes any sense, basically. I think when you ask if we're fundamentally different, I don't think we are fundamentally different, but I do think we have differences. I know that sounds like a really, weird separation.
You got to separate.
But I think we're human first. And there's more that makes us the same than makes us different. But I think that gender probably comes down to more like feminine and masculine energy and the degrees to which you express that within yourself. But I think that the definitions of men, what is a man and what is a woman in our society, have predominantly been defined by gender roles rather than truth. They've predominantly been defined by what people in power think we should be doing. And I don't see a lot of gender roles. I don't see a lot of good come from gender roles. I can't think of one thing good thing that's happened from gender roles that wouldn't happen without them, if that makes sense. But I feel like this is a juicy question, so what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think gender roles are important at all. I think, yes, some men can be more feminine than some women, and some women can be more feminine than some men, you know? But I don't think just because you are feminine, therefore you should enjoy cooking and cleaning. Maybe you like cooking, maybe you don't like cleaning. I think the roles are created by society. And I feel like these days people are much more modern and people are much more compromising. But I don't know, in my household, in a lot of households, the woman does tend to do most of the cleaning, most of the cooking. She organises the kids and she organises the house. And it's just kind of what I've seen. I don't think I've seen much of the opposite. Maybe it's just my experience because... And the people that I hang out with, I have a lot of, traditional, things around me and what I've seen. And it's okay that it was worked for them, but I just wonder, I don't know, I wonder if they're doing it because they think they have to, or whether they're doing it because
they want to,
which is kind of like, I don't think it's good if they've been forced into something like that.
Yeah. Definitely not. And I think that's why feminism is so important, to give you the freedom to have that choice, because I feel like a lot of women don't know whether they're doing it because they want to or because they have to. Just talking on the women's side, men experience a lot of gender roles as well that are really toxic. But they don't know because there's no option other than to. I think our generation, our parents' generation slightly, and maybe some of our grandparents, but before that, I guess both of us being Caribbean... You didn't have any chance to explore something different. And it's also that gender roles are deeply intertwined with measures of success and how successful you are as a human. So you can want success and feel fulfilled by something oppressive because you've been taught that. And by that, let me explain. So women might feel super duper fulfilled by being married, by having kids early, by being a young mum, by having a perfect house, which is fine.
Yeah.
But sometimes it might not necessarily be because that's what they want, but because that's what society has taught them means successful.
Gone out and explored and seen what you actually want and what you actually desire.
Exactly. And that had you done that, you'd be considered a failure. So then are you a success to yourself but for failure to the rest of society, or do you choose to be a success to society because you've ticked all the boxes but maybe never had the chance to explore what really works for you? For example, I've got loads of friends my age who actively don't want kids. They know they don't want kids, but they're saying they don't know what their life looks like. there's no example of that for them. What does it look like to be 40 and not have kids? What does that trajectory mean for them? So yes, but I think both men and women get incredibly oppressed by gender roles. I don't see a lot of good that comes out of them personally.
I'm trying to think of a good state of gender.
Nope.
But it depends on what you define as your gender, I guess. Because if you say, I am a woman, but I am more masculine, then I suppose that gender role of being masculine will get you somewhere in the workforce. And if you're saying, well, I'm a man, but I feel more feminine, you might be more emotionally intelligent than other men that are around you. But I guess these are just the gender roles that we're taught to believe. Like, who says that being masculine doesn't mean that you can express your emotions? These are just things that have been taught to us. And I think that is the real toxicity of what gender roles are now. I think it's really important for us to define what gender roles really are. Because I think what we see it now as a woman in the kitchen, a man at work, as gender roles, they're not real gender roles. I feel like we need to redefine them. And when we do, modernize it. We need to modernize what the gender roles are. I think that's the future. I think that's what it's doing.
Definitely. And when I think about actually, so many gender roles are so material. They're not about how you think, or they're about service or what you do. So like you said, men go to work, women stay in the kitchen. What if you grew up somewhere that didn't have jobs or kitchen? I'm just saying, I know that sounds silly, but do you know what I mean? So much of them are based in a culture we exist in, or in a society we exist in. If you took that out, what does it mean? And that's why I feel like gender is so enrooted in culture.
Definitely.
If that makes sense. Like, it's not, you can go to a different country and have completely different gender roles. Like, there is, or like you can even get matriarchal societies, for example, where it's normal for the woman to be the one in power when a man and a woman marry.
In Jamaica, it's the man that cooks. The men cook better than the women.
I did not know that.
Yeah, the men. Jamaica. Don't know about Grenada, but Jamaica. Yeah. In Jamaica, the men cook better than the women. Like, when we go to my uncle's house in Jamaica, he cooked like a big breakfast for us. I was like, I'm cooking. Do you know what I mean? It's my granddad used to cook a lot for my grandma. Yeah. And all that, so...
And when you think about it, that makes sense. Because I think the gender roles that make more sense to me are the ones that are a bit more metaphoric. So I personally do agree that it is a man's role to provide. So I feel like the gender roles that make the most sense to me are the ones that are a bit more metaphoric. But even then, I feel like they can apply to both men and women. So, for example, the whole men providing. I think that is true. I think that is a beautiful gender role to have. But I think we've decided what that means. That providing must mean money. It doesn't mean providing emotional support. It doesn't mean providing food, like what you're saying. It doesn't mean providing, like, a safe space for you to be yourself. Like, I think those elements of providing are beautiful. But then I can also see that a woman's role is to provide. A woman's role isn't to provide a home and a cooked meal when you get on the table. For me, that's... If you choose that to be something you want to do, yes, but I don't think that's ingrained in you as a woman. That's just a choice. To do. Yeah, that's a choice you've made as a person. But I think a woman's role is also to provide with the same things. A safe space, someone you can count on, someone you can... Your children, same with a man, like, even that about being nurturing. I think both a man and a woman's role is to nurture and nurture their children. I just think they just might approach it in different ways because of their energies. But I think... Yeah, I just think society has really warped and ruined what that means.
Feminine and masculine is. Yeah, 100%.
It's just different ways of doing things rather than different things to do.
Okay, so my next point is, like, what do you think about abortion? And do you think that someone can be both feminist and also be pro-life as well?
Yes. So I personally agree with abortion. I think that every woman should have the choice. And I think for me... It depends on what you mean by pro-life. I've got to admit, the only pro-life I know is the complete extreme of, like, all of you are going to hell if you dare get an abortion, if that makes sense. But I think I think you can still be a feminist and pro-life. It depends on whether you're pro-life for yourself or pro-life for everyone else. So, but then I guess that's the point of being pro-choice, isn't it? Pro-choice means you can do whatever you want to do.
You can choose life, or you can choose not life, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I guess...
You don't really think you can be pro-life and a feminist. So pro-life is against pro-choice, isn't it?
Yeah, if pro-life is against pro-choice, then I don't think you can be a feminist and pro-life. But I think it's perfectly acceptable to be a feminist and say, for me, I don't think I could do that. And I don't think it's right for me. And if you ask me morally, I don't think it's right. But I'm not going to judge you if someone else does it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Definitely. I think if you're taking away from someone's choice, like you said before, you're not being a feminist. You're not supporting females. You're telling someone what they need and can't do. And I think a lot of pro-life people, they think that, the only reason someone wants to get abortion is because they can't afford it, or because they're too young. But rich people who are married also get abortions.
Yeah.
So it's just some people just don't want to have kids and they don't want to put their body through that,
Yeah.
So I just don't think you can take away someone's right like that, you know?
Exactly. And it's also like, one, like, that child could have been conceived out of assault or something awful like that. You don't know the circumstances. Abortion also counts for women who could die in childbirth. And so it's actually, the child wouldn't make it, the mother wouldn't make it. It makes sense for the not makes sense, that sounds horrible, but you know what I mean. It's medically advised that she has an abortion. And I think,
but even though it could just be, I don't want to have a kid right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the main point. I don't think they're saying, I don't think pro-life people are saying, if you need an abortion, you can't. I think they're saying, yes, okay, if you're going to die, then sure. But I think what they're saying is, no one should just do it willy-nilly. But if they don't want to put their body through, pregnancy can be very traumatic.
Yeah, it can.
A lot of people, there's post-traumatic stress, people with anxiety, people...
Like postnatal depression.
Sorry.
No,
what did I just say?
No, post-traumatic stress counts, but
postnatal depression.
You got it.
But so there's postnatal depression, all of that kind of stuff, and it's a whole thing that you're putting your body through.
Definitely.
And to be forced to do it is insane.
And a lot of pro-life people, it's like, alright, cool. What about when the baby's born? You buying the Pampers?
Exactly. You gonna change the adoption system? Say if you don't want to keep the kids, you know how messed up the care system is insane.
Yeah.
And you don't want this kid. You don't want to give up for adoption. So I'm like here with a kid.
Exactly.
That I didn't really want,
I think a lot of people who are pro-choice sometimes like change the phrasing of pro-life to pro-birth. Because if you were pro-life, you would care about every stage of the child's life. But you're just pro-birth, which is why they say it's a lot more about controlling women's bodies than actually caring about the life that's born.
And I do understand that there are people out there that are pro-life, but I do think that you can be pro-life without stopping people that want pro-choice to be a thing.
Definitely.
That's it. So, last question. As a creative, do you feel feminism has a role in the art and the creative world? And do you incorporate feminism into your work and the work that you do?
Absolutely, positively to both. No, but for sure. Like, I think that feminism has a huge role in art and the creative world, because I think that the art and the creative world is a lot, like, can be the place we get some of our really detrimental messages. So if you think that the media counts as the creative world, that's music videos, that's film, that's songs, that's art, that's fashion, that's everything. Like, the messages we get about women through all of those mediums, whether it's that you should be subservient, or women should be defined by their sexual partner and finding love and all of that in the rom-coms we see, or that you have to be a worthy woman, you should be a size 0 and your cheekbones should like be, carved by the gods or something crazy like that. So I think it does have a role, because I think not feminism, the creative world can use its powers for good or evil, and it should be turning around more. In terms of my own work, a bajillion% I do. And I think kind of like what you were saying earlier, people always think that to be a feminist, it's something really aggressive, it's something really like overt and in your face. For me, anytime I'm portraying a woman in an honest way, I feel like I'm being feminist. Anytime I try and make women in my poems or my stories well-rounded characters, I feel like I'm being a feminist. Every time that I name them and give them a voice and like do that and like use inspiration from the women around my life so people connect with women more, I feel like I'm being a feminist. I don't think, and this isn't bashing it at all, I think that really like punk and like in your face feminism is amazing and it deserves a place, but I don't think that's the only thing we should define as feminist art. And even like female artists being told that any work they do is feminist just because they're a woman is problematic. Like no, let's just call the work that's problematic. Just because it's done by a woman doesn't mean it's feminist. Let's call the things that are like really chauvinistic and misogynistic that. So yeah, like I do two things. So by day I am a copywriter in the big bad world of advertising, and I definitely fight for the portrayal of women. Like even recently, literally the end of this week, my creative partner and I at work have pushed for our agency to do something on the Sarah Everard murder and to do something about educating men, and we've pushed for them to put their resources to do something. So I try and bring that in my workplace as well, because I think that's important. And then in my own work, I love talking about women. I also love talking about men, actually, of writing men, because I think I write men from the lens of them challenging the toxicity they've been taught. And writing men as a woman, I think, can be really powerful.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
So Marley has an Instagram page. I've asked her to recite a poem for me that she has on the page. She's going to do that for us?
Yeah, I'll do it. So for a bit of context, I started a website and a blog just for me to do short stories and writing, because I feel like I wasn't doing it enough and I needed to make time for the thing I really like to do. But yes, this poem that I will read for you is called 6 p.m. Madeira. It's based off of a beautiful portrait of a black woman by a black woman. So it's called 6 p.m. Madeira. You call me over for 6 p.m. Madeira, and I drop everything. Like a hot baking tin I had no business holding barehanded in the first place. This time, it's the deadline, deadbeat, dodge wig, young kids, STI that beckons me to the seat opposite your chair, to hear about why you would call me over for 6 p.m. Madeira back when everything was big. Inflated to the corners of our wide eyes, blotting out our view of the distance for just a few fickle years free from the burden of being long-sighted. We laugh now at how things have shrunk. Your fat thighs that hindsight has made true to size, the men whom you swore you would never leave back then, have molted into boys who couldn't see you now, not even for a squint. Those nights, the ones we hung over day's edge with a pick and mix of borrowed lipstick, popped corks and bouncers that knew us by the bust. Time has trimmed them down the sides and left us little, but when you call me over for 6 p.m. Madeira.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you.
That was MarleyMWrites. I'm going to link her Instagram in the bio. She also did a really cool poem about carnival that I urge you to check out. Yeah, because her face is on it looking all beautiful and queen-like. But yeah, check that out. And thank you guys for tuning in. This has been the Vocal Podcast. Say goodbye, Marley.
Bye, and thank you for having me. It's been an honour. Shannon is amazing and smart and beautiful, and this is something everyone should listen to. And it's been awesome doing this with my best friend.